and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Wednesday, 21 May. Today we're going to be talking about the EU is lifting economic sanctions on Syria, Trump is seeking a Golden Dome missile shield by the end of his term, and the EU has adopted Russian sanctions amid Ukraine ceasefire push. So firstly, the European Union has decided to lift its economic sanctions on Syria, the bloc's foreign policy chief said on Tuesday. The bloc had already discussed lifting sanctions back in February, expressing a desire to support the rapid economic recovery in Syria after over decades of civil war. However, not all EU sanctions will be lifted. Individuals and organisations with connections to the regime of Bashar al-Assad, as well as those responsible for brutal repression and human rights violations, will remain under sanction. The EU will maintain its export restrictions on weapons and goods and technologies that are used for domestic repression. The decision to lift sanctions came after Donald Trump said last week that he would order the lifting of US sanctions against Syria. Despite Tuesday's announcement, there is still concern in Brussels that the new Syrian government may not be heading in the right direction. These fears have been highlighted by recent clashes between different groups. The new government was set up by militants from the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group that shocked the world in December with a lightning advance that brought an end to decades of rule of the Assad family. The group's Islamist ideology has been a major cause for concern in Europe, but the years of conflict as well as growing instability in the wider region have left little room for manoeuvre. So what? I think Europe are right to be a bit hesitant. Obviously, the new leader, he comes from a pretty interesting background, having been a former member of Al-Qaeda, an affiliate of the Islamic State, and then the leader of HTS. Doesn't really bode well for his ability to see eye to eye with the West, but giving him the benefit of the doubt and try to help the recovery of Syria is a positive move, in my opinion. Similar to what I said when Trump said he was going to lift sanctions. I think this is a positive move, and it's likely the best way forward, as it allows the recovery of Syria, which is super positive, allows the West to ideally come in and support this recovery and try and guide them towards a more democratic and peaceful way of life. But it also allows us to keep an eye on them while this is all happening, so we can see if the country is slipping back into repression. That's my opinion anyway. And next, United States President Donald Trump on Tuesday unveiled a plan to develop a defense system designed to detect, track, and potentially intercept incoming missiles. He said his Golden Dome would cost $175 billion and that he wants it fully operational by the end of his term. Trump has asked for an initial $25 billion for the program in a sweeping tax cut bill currently being reviewed by Congress. In the campaign, I promised the American people I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield, he said in the White House. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from the other side of the world, and even if they are launched from space, Trump said. Missile Shield aims to create a network of satellites to detect, track, and potentially intercept incoming missiles. The dome would have the capacity to deploy hundreds of satellites for missile detection and tracking. The name and concept stems from Israel's Iron Dome air defense system, which has intercepted thousands of short-range rockets and other projectiles since becoming operational in 2011. However, missile threats to the US are starkly different from the short-range weapons that Israel's Iron Dome intercepts. So what? I think that last bit of the article kind of is the crux here. This is a totally different situation. The Iron Dome is super effective against short-range rockets fired from Gaza and Lebanon. Israel has something similar to what Trump is suggesting here. It's not hugely successful. It failed to intercept a ballistic missile the other day fired from Yemen. So, this is a pretty tough ask. From everything I've read about, large-scale missile defense, it's a huge uphill battle. and not something that should be taken lightly. It also comes down to whether this is a requirement. Like, this is a lot of money to be spent on something that may never be used. While it is a deterrent, because no doubt if you fire a missile at the US and they intercept it, you best believe they'll be firing one back. So it could be more of a way of deterring any form of aggression from near peer adversaries. But yeah, seems like a lot of money for something that doesn't necessarily seem that much of a requirement right now. And lastly, the EU on Tuesday approved its 17th round of sanctions on Russia, the bloc's top diplomat said. The new measures target the nearly 200 ships of Russia's so-called shadow fleet. These ships are used to help Russia evade oil sales restrictions and are often dilapidated and uninsured with unclear ownership. Kallas added that more Russian sanctions are in the works. The longer Russia wages war, the tougher the response will be, she said. So what? For sanctions to be effective, they need to be enforced. That's basically the crux of it. A lot of the sanctions that are currently in place are being avoided and worked around through, intermediary countries that are providing services to Russia, basically, to make money. And this oil is no different. But sanctioning these ships and trying to cut down on Russia's ability to move its main moneymaker out of the country will likely have a significant impact on the country. This is also why I'm a big advocate for Trump's secondary sanctions, against countries that buy Russian oil, as this would definitely put some countries, especially India, in an awkward situation where they don't want to be the purchasers of this oil. However, Russia has shown that they're pretty good at withstanding sanctions and, just changing their economy to suit the situation. So I don't think this is going to be the golden bullet that ends the war, but it's a step in the right direction. But as I said, secondary sanctions against countries buying Russian oil, that's, to me, the crux. That's the key. That's the sanction that we need. Hopefully soon that Trump sees that Putin doesn't want peace and makes that move. But until then, we'll wait out. Thank you for listening to today's Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.